The view across the empty road, the faint hum of motorcycles in the distance, growing louder. Crickets chirp faintly, and the scene feels isolated. A lone black woman, dressed in casual yet sharp attire, strides confidently toward her car, parked under a flickering streetlight. Her expression is calm, her eyes scanning the surroundings with quiet vigilance. The motorcycles grow closer, their engines roaring like distant thunder. In the quiet of a remote highway, an ordinary evening was about to become extraordinary. The echoes of engines reverberating through the still night signaled the approach of trouble. A group of men, fueled by arrogance and bias, were closing in. Their target? A woman they believed was an easy mark, but they were about to face a lesson in underestimation they would never forget. The woman reaches her car, places a hand on the door handle, and pauses. Her eyes flick to the side, catching movement in the distance. The motorcycles come into view, their headlights cutting through the darkness like piercing eyes. There's a beat of silence before the faint hum of her voice disrupts the tension as she hums a calm, almost defiant tune. The camera shifts to a shot of the motorcycles as they slow, surrounding her vehicle, their riders masked by helmets, but exuding a menacing energy. This was no random encounter. This gang was infamous, their reputation marked by violence and intimidation. But they had no idea who they were up against. They saw a lone figure, vulnerable, outnumbered, easy prey. What they couldn't see was the truth, a truth they were about to learn the hard way. What happens when hate blinds you to the strength of your victim? When assumptions turn deadly, but not for the one you expected? This is the story of a night that turned the tables. A night when justice was redefined on an empty stretch of road. Stay tuned to discover what happened to the biker gangs. Let know where you're watching from in the comment section. Make sure to engage kindly, like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification button for more interesting stories. Michelle Thompson, a former Marine turned self-defense instructor, is no stranger to adversity. Known for her quiet strength and commanding presence, she's dedicated her life to teaching others how to stand their ground, physically and emotionally. On this trip, though, she wasn't looking for conflict. She was on a personal mission, traveling cross-country to honor the memory of her late father, a civil rights activist who always believed that courage and conviction could change the world. Her resilience was forged in the fires of her past. As one of the few black women in her unit, Michelle faced challenges far beyond the rigorous demands of military life. But instead of breaking her, those experiences sharpened her resolve, shaping her into a woman who never backs down. To Michelle, every mile driven, every roadside stop was a tribute to a man who taught her that strength was not just in the fists, but in the will to fight for what is right. On the other side of the story was a group known for wreaking havoc wherever they went. The Iron Vultures, a name synonymous with fear in small towns across the region, weren't just bikers. They were enforcers of their own twisted code, targeting anyone they saw as an outsider. Their leader, Crusher, a towering figure with a booming voice, thrived on chaos and control. He wore his nickname like a badge of honor, a testament to the damage he left in his wake. To Crusher and his crew, the highway wasn't just a road, it was their domain, a place where they could intimidate, dominate, and remind others who held the power. But their unchecked arrogance left them blind to one simple truth. Not every target is easy prey. The screen shifts back to Michelle's car, now idling by the highway. Her face is calm, unreadable, as she watches the horizon. The faint rumble of motorcycles can be heard again, building steadily. Michelle tightens her grip on the steering wheel for a moment before releasing it, her expression unflinching. Two paths were about to cross. One belonged to a woman shaped by resilience and purpose, the other to a group defined by fear and violence. What happened next would change the lives of everyone on that road. Michelle's car pulling into a desolate gas station. A single fluorescent light flickers overhead, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The silence is broken by the distant rumble of motorcycles approaching. Michelle steps out of her car, her movements deliberate as she heads toward the gas pump. Her calm demeanor contrasts with the rising tension of the approaching gang. It was supposed to be a quick stop, a chance to refuel and keep moving. But isolation has its risks. The hum of engines grew louder, and soon the iron vultures emerged from the shadows like wolves circling their prey. The gang rolls into the station, their bikes forming a loose perimeter around Michelle. Their headlights blaze, creating an intimidating wall of light. The riders jeer, their voices cutting through the still night air. The pans across their faces, sneering, confident, reveling in their numbers. Crusher steps off his bike, his boots crunching against the gravel as he strides forward. Crusher. Well, look what we got here, boys. A lost little lamb. Nervous laughter erupts from the gang. One rider leans over his handlebars, shouting a slur. Michelle doesn't flinch. She finishes fueling her car and calmly replaces the nozzle, her eyes fixed on Crusher. They thought their numbers gave them power. They thought intimidation was enough to secure their dominance. But Michelle had faced worse adversaries than this. Crusher approaches, his towering figure blocking her path to the driver's seat. His smirk widens as he gestures toward her car. Crusher. You got some nerve rolling through here like you belong, so why don't you prove it? Let's see if you can hold your own. The gang hollers in agreement, their taunts growing louder. Michelle, still composed, steps forward, her voice steady but firm. Michelle. I don't want trouble, but if you don't back off, you'll regret it. The gang erupts in laughter. Crusher feigns surprise, raising his hands mockingly. Crusher. Regret it? Oh, sweetheart, you've got no idea who you're messing with. One of the gang members, emboldened by the crowd, lunges at Michelle, the slow capturing every movement in crisp detail. Michelle sidesteps effortlessly, grabbing his arm mid-swing and twisting it behind his back. He cries out in pain as she disarms him, his knife clattering to the ground. In the blink of an eye, the dynamic shifted. What they thought was an easy target became their worst miscalculation. Michelle's movements weren't just defensive. They were precise, calculated, and rooted in years of training. The view follows as Michelle releases the gang member, who stumbles back, clutching his arm in shock. The gang falls silent, their confidence shaken. Crusher's smirk falters, replaced by a flicker of doubt. Crusher. All right, so you've got some tricks. Let's see how far that gets you. Michelle adjusts her stance, her hands loose and ready at her sides. Her voice, calm and unwavering, cuts through the tension. Michelle. Last warning, walk away now. They had come expecting an easy victory, but what they found was a force they couldn't comprehend. The night was far from over, and the lesson they were about to learn would come at a cost they never anticipated. The confrontation Michelle faced is not an isolated incident. Racially motivated violence remains a deeply rooted issue in America. According to FBI data, over 60% of reported hate crimes are motivated by race or ethnicity, a chilling reminder of the ongoing battle against prejudice and intolerance. The persistence of hate groups, like the one Michelle encountered, thrives on systemic failures, gaps in accountability, unequal enforcement of justice, and a cultural reluctance to confront uncomfortable truths. But marginalized communities have found strength in unity and empowerment. For individuals like Michelle, self-defense is more than physical. It's a means of reclaiming autonomy in a world that too often seeks to strip it away. Empowerment programs across the country are equipping those most at risk with the tools they need to protect themselves, not just in body, but in spirit. Her story serves as a powerful reminder. While hate seeks to divide, preparation and resilience can bridge the gap between fear and strength. In a world where prejudice persists, knowledge is as essential as courage. Michelle, still standing firm as the gang regroups, anger flashing across their faces. The sound of engines revving fills the air, the tension hanging thick. The gang, now fully enraged by Michelle's earlier defiance, moves toward her in a threatening formation. The air is charged, every step they take echoing like a countdown to something inevitable. As the gang recoiled from their first encounter with Michelle, their pride stung. They had a choice, to retreat or escalate. Fueled by their humiliation, they chose the latter. And this time, they wouldn't hold back. One of the gang members rushes at Michelle, fists flying, but she's already moving, a flash of fluid motion. She dodges, twisting his arm and bringing him to the ground with practiced precision. Another member lunges from the side, but Michelle anticipates his move, delivering a swift kick to his knee that sends him crumpling to the ground. Michelle's military training kicked in, each movement sharp, purposeful. She disabled them with efficiency, her every action rooted in restraint. She wasn't here to fight, but she wasn't going to let them hurt her either. Crusher, now fuming, pulls a gun from his waistband. The scene slows, his furious face filled with rage. He points the weapon directly at Michelle, a threatening growl in his voice. Crusher, you think you've won? You don't know who you're dealing with. Michelle's face as she assesses the situation, calculating, calm, her breath steady. With lightning speed, she lunges forward, knocking the weapon out of Crusher's hand in a swift, expertly executed disarm. The gun clatters to the ground, and Crusher stumbles back, stunned. In that moment, the tables turned. Crusher, now standing with nothing but his rage, was powerless against the woman before him. And though he was defeated, it was not violence that ended the confrontation. It was control. Michelle's control over the situation and her ability to walk away unscathed. The tide had shifted. The very people who once sought to instill fear now stood exposed. A call to the authorities had turned the tide, and the arrival of the police would ensure justice, not vengeance. Police cars screech to a halt, officers leaping out with their guns drawn, but the situation is already under control. Michelle stands, unhurt, her posture calm and composed as the officers move in to arrest the gang members. Crusher is cuffed, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. The rest of the gang members are similarly subdued, their defiant faces now clouded with the weight of their actions. In the end, Michelle's calm, calculated actions had not only saved her life, but exposed a dangerous group to the law. The gang was arrested, their reign of terror in this town shattered. What followed was an outpouring of community support, a united front against the hate that had taken root for far too long. The pans across the faces of the bystanders who witnessed the confrontation, some nodding in approval, others shaking their heads in disbelief at what they just saw. A subtle sense of victory fills the air, though the real work was just beginning. But Michelle's victory wasn't just about the fight. It was about something more profound, the reclamation of power in the face of fear, the refusal to let hate win. And in the end, it was the law that triumphed, not the mob. Michelle watches the gang members being driven away in police cars. Her face remains stoic, but her eyes reflect a quiet strength, as if she's already moved on to the next chapter. Michelle, walking away from the scene, her back straight and purposeful, to a wide shot of the gas station parking lot, now empty except for the flashing lights of the police cars. The soft hum of distant traffic is the only sound. This story is not just about one woman's courage. It's about the strength to stand against hate, the resilience to rise when the world tries to break you down. Michelle fought back, not just for herself, but for every person silenced by prejudice, every individual who's ever been made to feel less than human simply because of who they are. In every act of defiance, in every step we take toward justice, we send a message. Hate has no place in this world. But that fight doesn't end here. It continues every day in the conversations we have, in the actions we take, and in the causes we support. Stand against hate, speak out, support organizations combating racism and hate crimes. Take a moment to reflect. What can you do to make your community a safer, more inclusive place? What actions will you take to speak out against racism and support those working to combat hate? The fight for justice is ongoing. Will you be part of the change? Let's know in the comment section. Share your thought on how you would stand against hate to make the world a better and safe place. Your feedback give an insight of how we can provide more interesting stories. Kindly share, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.